been coming to Kashmir for a long time, from the mid-80s. I made some films here on handicrafts, on handloom. And I and three other friends with whom I discussed, Professor Dinesh Mohan of IIT, Sumanto Banerjee, a well-known journalist and author, and Gautam Navlakha. He was then associate editor of Economic and Political Weekly. तो हम चारों यहाँ आ गए. Jagmohan Saab was already here. Mr. Ved Marwa, whom I had known, all known in Delhi in '84. He was the commissioner during the killing of the Sikhs. At that point of time, we had also organized the Citizens Relief Committee and we had interacted with him. So we knew him. So we landed up here. It was very cold and the place was completely locked down. You didn't see people on the street and the place was also completely vacant. But the officer in charge, we asked him, so he opened a room for us, 2 rooms actually. We were also able to get a vehicle. So Marwa ji ke paas gaye, so he was quite kind enough to give us curfew pass. And that's how our visit to various parts of Srinagar. We couldn't go very far. We went to Bemina, we went to Barjula, but we couldn't go out. We wanted to go to Charare Sharif, but that was not possible. At every point we were all checked and stopped and all kinds, and in some places we also lost our cool with the army. But the person who actually helped us at that point of time was Mufti Bahauddin. He had retired and he was a judge, and so we contacted him. I had known him before. So he was with us all that time. And, we investigated the Gao Kadal incident. We met some of the victims. We went to the hospitals. We investigated the Bemina, Zakura. And it was very clear that there was really no holds bar kind of a operation that Jagmohan had already ordered. And people were just getting killed. We also investigated the flight of the Pandits. And the whole mystery of this 24 January, which Jagmohan ji has written in his book about the night, like the night of the Holocaust, where he received telephone calls from frightened Pandit families and all that. It remains a mystery because 24th January is also the night of crackdown. And in protest against that crackdown on the 25th, when people came out, they were massacred on Gaukadal Bridge. You all remember that. And it's almost like Jallianwala Bagh. And there is no answer as to how all that, which even this Rahul Pandit and others have written, that night they were all being attacked and Pandit houses. A massive crackdown was going on. People were not allowed to come out of their houses. I mean, at that point of time, I find it very difficult to believe that, and we found no real evidence that is what was happening. We also went to Jammu, met with several Pandit families then in that Gita Bhavan and other places. A totally confusing picture. I mean, a lot of people also admitted that there were all kinds of things. Chits were being given. They were all organizing, the transportation, this, that. Whether it was provided by the army or the BSF or whether it was provided by the state government, it's not very clear. But it's quite clear that, thousands of people at that point of time, when things were all locked down, buses were not flying, transportation was the most difficult things, how thousands could just, travel within a few days, a mystery that has yet not been resolved. I think Jagmohan's days were what set the whole thing in the way it has gone. One of the things that we heard every day, that boys are going across, and they were going, as we know. And subsequent to that, my interviews and talks with various people who have come back, surrendered, whether it was Javed, Mir, or Yasin, or Sabir Shah, and others. It's very clear that boys were going across. And the point is, what I have still not been able to understand is what was the army doing? The army was on the border, and in front of their nose, these boys were crossing over. Why didn't the army stop them? Now, I would have say that that was the first job of the army and the governor to ensure that boys didn't go, across in such large numbers. That they were stopped, and then you could talk to them, deal with them, but there was absolute, I would say, almost a collaboration that let them go. And this is another mystery that I have not been able to understand. And Jagmohan claims, subsequent to that, I think Mr. Watali has also written in his book, that Jagmohan says he did not know that the boys were going across. Oh, what a joke. All the injured people who were brought to the hospitals, no records were being maintained. All the bullet wounds, all the kind of, the nature of the wounds. So the medical legal registrars were removed. This we have written at that point of time. In our report, the first report, and then we wrote 5 reports at that point of time. The first one, of course, was, because we were also very angry, we called it India's Kashmir War. And in retrospect, I think that is still going on. And, once you introduce this kind of illegal things, the idea very clearly was that they did not want any record to be maintained about the manner in which the security forces had dealt with the people, the nature of the bullets, the kind of, excessive use of force. Because if you have that kind of medical legal records, you would then have a historical record of what had happened at that point of time. So they removed it. Some of the doctors in the hospitals tried to maintain their own records, but I came to know later on those records were also taken away. So we really don't have any real records of the exact nature of the atrocities that was perpetrated. We also went to several areas. Chandpura was one area which was specifically targeted for whatever reason. And the kind of destruction that the army was doing, and the BSF was also at that point of time used in large numbers, they would not only just take away people, beat them up, they will destroy everything in the house. They will break up, and it was deep winter, March 1990 was a very cold time. And they would break up the window panes, they will, destroy whatever food stuff was there in the house. And the other thing that they started was also, doing this cordon and search deep in the night, and make people pull them out of their homes from their bed. Often they will not be even allowed to put on protective clothing, stand in that cold. I would say that there were several clear attempts. The attack on Charare Sharif, the burning down, on which I have a report. And it's very clear that these attacks were actually aimed at destroying some of the cultural and historic symbols of the Kashmiri people. Noon Rishi's ziyarat is a very important place for Kashmiris. He's the patron saint of the valley. That disturbed the Kashmiris very, very much. I remember that. The way people were. And when I first went there, 7 days after the incident, it looked like the films you saw about Germany after bombing of Germany by at the end of the Second World War, where there were only some burnt out buildings, and it was exactly like that. I still have the photographs, and it gave me, I was really frightened looking at all that. How vicious. But similar thing happened. I also had seen Iqbal Market. The entire market burned down, not once.
So poor.
Yes. And I went there first time. So there were very, very deliberate, destruction and targeted attack of institutions. The burning down of the Iqbal market was a message sent to the whole apple trading and orchard community. So it was planned in a way of making the Kashmiri understand that we can really, if you want, we will destroy you. We had also heard of rumors that they were thinking of using the Air Force, which they had done in Mizoram. Fortunately, I believe it was turned down at the Prime Minister's level. So it's quite, my experience in those days, the impression I developed and which I carry on till date, that the whole approach of India was that flood the place with security forces, change the whole situation, make the civilian government completely dysfunctional, and hold the people with massive force. Governor Jagmohan refused to meet us. We had meetings with the Chief Secretary, Vijay Kapoor Tha, and he denied everything. And we gave him all the figures. We raised the whole issue of removal of the medical records, the whole system of keeping track of what was happening. And I said to him, we showed to him that the Kashmir administration was completely absent. There was no government. There was only the police, even the police. Police, you remember, at that point of time was also under a lot of pressure. Agitation hua, police ki pitai kar diye the, ye CRPF walon ne. So when we met him in Jammu, he denied everything. All the officers, we had he held a meeting with 4 or 5 secretaries, jisme there were 2 persons who did not speak at all, was Mr. Hindal Taibji and Ashok Jaitley. इन दोनों ने मुंह नहीं खोला था उस मीटिंग पे. बाकियों ने सभी ने गवर्नमेंट का पोजीशन सपोर्ट किया. And I remember, and which I quoted in my report, which we wrote for the EPW, Kapoor Saab told me that the whole valley is gone Pakistani. So told us. So we said, how do you know? He said, I've been taking, helicopter survey of the valley, and all I say only green flags. So we wrote that, he has learnt about, gathered his intelligence by a helicopter survey of the valley, that all the Kashmiris have turned Pakistani. They threatened to take us to court for defamation. Also on the Bemina, our report on the Bemina massacre, on Gaon Kadal they did not. Bemina, they said we have wrongly informed. It was actually a school bus, which it was not. So we said, we are willing to go to court. But I believe at the end of the day, the law department told them not to, go with this case. So that was our response. But I have met with the various chief secretaries, subsequently with Mahmudur Rahman and others many times. I met Mr. Saxena. They very clearly, first thing is total denial. Anytime we try to point out that, look, we are not anti-India. We want the Indian Constitution to be upheld. It is the duty of every Indian citizen to ensure that the Constitution is upheld, and the government has to function within the law. I remember Mahmudur asking me, what do you mean by human rights? Army also has human rights. So I said, this army, everybody as a human being has his rights. But the point is that the militant by definition is outside the law. So how do you deal with somebody who's outside the law? You have to deal with him legally. You cannot become a militant, you cannot adopt that, the tactics of the militant. If you do that, then you are also becoming illegal.